All right, guys, it's time for the Next Level Guy Show, a men's interview, interest, and improvement-focused podcast featuring interviews with the greats from all industries to help you better your life. Each week, a new episode features an interview with one of the greats, covering all aspects of their story, from life hacks to tips and protocols that have allowed them to live life on the next level. We then highlight concrete action steps that you can use to improve your life. And now, your host, Ian Dawson Mackay.
And today's guest is Jamie Date. Jamie is a men's dating coach whose aim is to help men fall in love with themselves so beautiful women can do the same. She's a TikTok viral sensation, and she prides herself on never having a bad date, and she can show you how to do it too. She's a knack for making the dating process fun and enjoyable, yet refrains from sugarcoating anything that you need to hear to reach your dating goals. Jamie's clients have found tremendous success learning how to attract more high-quality women, both in person and online. As a professional catfish who picks up women just to show clients how it's done, she will teach you the in and outs of swiping left and right. She's an expert in conversation, banter, and can teach you how to escalate flirtation and build sexual tension with ease. She's often referred to as a red flag whisperer, and she'll coach you on how to identify the red flags and how to navigate a healthy relationship or relationships if that's what you're after. With a background in door-to-door sales and a deep respect for men trying to better themselves, she uses her interpersonal, honest and informative expertise to teach with a very practical, step-by-step approach to meeting and attracting women. No vague, cliché advice offered or accepted. Whether it's teaching the art of conversation or showing you how to own your confidence, Jamie's approach is not only effective, but it's entertaining. Want to up your dating game? Jamie Date is the one to call. And now, let's get to the interview. Thank you so much for coming on. I've been a major fan of yours on social media for quite a while now. My mom's excited that I'm doing this interview because I need to get back in the dating world. But for people who don't recognise the name, and they should, how would you introduce what you do, apart from being the saviour of all mankind for dating?
I'm Jamie Date. I'm a dating coach for men. I help men, fall in love with themselves so they can get women to do the same. So in that, I really teach men how to approach, escalate, online dating, really rethink game in a way that is collaborative, not combative, where you are playing off of her curiosity, not her insecurity.
Yeah, like the old negging and the pickup style or the red pill, yeah. Unfortunately, I went through a period of that, and it got to a point where I felt like I was insulting her to try to get her to drop down rather than bringing us both up. I liked the idea of you being the prize, but the idea of insulting somebody that you were attracted to just felt a bit strange. So you went through the traditional career path of answering a Craigslist advert, doing door-to-door sales, and now you're helping guys get better with women. It's not a traditional path, really. How did you go about this, and what did you learn from this journey that you were on?
Okay, so I started doing door-to-door sales, and I did that for a while, and I was training. So what is going door-to-door if not approaching people? So I rid myself of the fear of approaching very early on, and I've just always been one that's very curious and very observant in the way of social dynamics between people. And when I worked for the sales company, and then I quit and I left, and I did like a little brief stint in South America. I eat, prayed, loved my way through South America. I came back, answered a Craigslist ad, and it was for this party, and I was able to talk to these guys and see, what they were doing right, what they were doing wrong. And I think because I had the sales training background and just who I was as a person, I was able to kind of give more fine-tuned advice versus maybe the other women that were in that little pool. And then the company that, was like, oh, do you want to work with us for these boot camps? And so then I was doing these boot camps once in a while. And it always was something that fulfilled me. And I got to, I think any sort of coach or teacher can agree with me on this. Like when you see the light in the eyes flicker when they get something, right? Or when something that, someone tried for actually gets it. And I got to see that with men. And so what we would do is we would create this safe space where they would practice on me. They would practice talking to me, approaching me, flirting with me, and I would be able to give them real-time feedback that was feedback that they had never received before from someone. You can get it from a guy's perspective, but a guy is only going to have from his perspective. Whereas with a woman, I think our advantage is I've had multiple different types of guys approach me. I've had I've been attracted to multiple different types of guys. So I'm able to see from a multifaceted point of view what women do find attractive, qualities, even in the looks department, even in, how you present yourself, things like that. And so that I think has been the thing that has helped with my success.
So, how would you define attraction? Because we all think it's if you've got the hots, if you fancy, whatever your terminology for it is. But
Mhm.
how would you define what it actually is from the sort of social dynamics for a female point of view compared to a male? Because you mentioned in a podcast where the men were hunters and women were like dimmer switches, and I love that analogy. And we all think women love muscles, looks, etc., whereas others, we've got these other notions of it's like how you make you feel, emotion versus logic and all these kind of things. How would you define what actual attraction is so we can actually truly understand this in the dating sense?
So you're absolutely right. Men and women have two separate ideas of what attraction means to them, at least in the beginning. So, men, physical appearance is number one, right? It's not the only thing, but physical appearance is number one for them, right? They're very physical creatures. Women, it's not as simple. Women, it's not looks, it's not money, it's not humor. It's actually a man's circumstance, and the way that I define that is how a man interacts with the world and how the world interacts with that man. So we see, and this comes from evolution, right?
Mm.
So, as the physically weaker species, it would be dangerous for us to only go off of looks. A man that is more well liked, more well respected in his community, that tells us in a very simplified version of just knowing you for 2 seconds. If we see that you're interacting with people and the way that people are interacting with you, it tells us the information that we need to know that you're, likely not going to harm us. You're not going to, you're a safe person, right? So that's why a man's circumstance is everything, which is why you'll typically see, maybe a not so great looking guy with a gorgeous woman, and not so often the opposite.
And because how did you find that then with all these guys coming to approach you and also going away, down to different countries, etc.? How did you see the range of dating? Did you see a kind of similarity in the philosophies behind the way they approached? Did you see a difference in how they were brought up, depending on the culture they were raised in, how they perceived themselves, self esteem? Where did you see guys kind of going wrong? Was there general rules that you noticed?
It's funny. I actually see a lot more similarities in the dating cultures between countries than dissimilarities. I feel like when it from my experience, if you go back down to the nuts and bolts of everything, like going back to a man's circumstance, right? No matter where you are in the world, a woman is going to look to a man's circumstance more than she looks to anything else, right? So if you really fine tune your lifestyle, if you really fine tune the way that you allow people to talk to you and the way that you talk to them and the direction that you're moving and the ambition that you're executing, that is going to be a very attractive quality across the board, no matter what country that you're in. Now, I will say this, in countries where men are a little bit more of that machismo type of attitude, right? You'll see them approach more women. Whereas I feel like in America, what's happening is I was actually talking about this the other day. I almost feel like men today in America are what women were, like where women were at back in the 90s and early 2000s. So if you remember watching like movies from the 90s and early 2000s, it's always the women that are always begging for the relationship, right? They want the boyfriend, they want this.
Mm-hmm.
And the man is always, dating lots of women, dating and he doesn't want to commit. He doesn't want to settle down. And now it's almost like it's reversed, where women have all of the options and men are the ones begging for relationships and wanting just to have a relationship, and they can't get any woman to commit. And, it's funny. It's like men are up in arms about this in America, which, it's very frustrating, very frustrating. But it's interesting that, it's exactly what women had to go through for so long. And it's things have just reversed now.
That's a great insight, because it's something I've definitely noticed is when I'm chatting to people, it's, oh, I'm chatting to so many other people I'm dating. It's almost like you feel like men are pursuing now, rather than, oh, there's tons of girls throwing themselves at us. Because girls have asked me that. I didn't know, was it a shit test or was this just like a normal conversational thing, but they were surprised when I would say no. Like, and then they would think I was a player or I was trying to sucker them into something. It was really interesting how they kind of perceived the answers. Are you a fuck boy? Are you this? Are you that? And I definitely have noticed a change in dating culture. I mean, I used to have success when I was a bit younger, before COVID, the £100 went on my body. How have you seen dating change over the last, say, 10 years or so? How is the kind of the culture, the attitudes? Is that the biggest change you've seen? That the
Yeah,
power
men are
dynamic?
just men are just afraid. Men are just afraid to afraid to put themselves out there, afraid to be rejected. And I think it's coming from both ends. I think that, well, social media and the media doesn't really do them any favors, because it's almost like they just highlight this very, very small extremist sect of feminism, pointing to feminism, saying feminism's the reason, when in reality, I think it's so much more complex than that. There are so many other reasons why dating is harder nowadays. We can even just look at the way that we structure our lives. We're working longer hours. We're making less money. Everything is much more expensive. We're tied to our work. The way that society is built is we're constantly inundated with all the things that we don't have. So we are almost like and it's funny, they talk about this in zoos. They can tell if an animal is thriving if they're able to mate with another animal in captivity, where it's almost like we are all in distress, which is why we're not mating anymore. And so I think that's a much bigger reason than just the extreme feminism. That's a small sect of what larger scale feminism actually is. So I just always like to make that determining factor, because I think it gets lost in the sauce a lot of the times. But either way, like dating is harder. Period. And the reason being isn't because of man or woman; it's the way that we are living now.
Hmm.
And I also think that feminism does play a part in it, because, and not extreme feminism, but what it was intended for. What feminism being, men and women are equal or have equal value and should be, accommodated as such. When women, we live in this country, and not even just this country, but well-defined countries. Women are expected to parent as if they don't have work, and work as if there aren't a parent. Teal Swan said that, and that line always stuck with me, because I was like, yes, this is why women are filing for divorce more often, because I think what's happening is we've had years. I mean, the feminism movement really started in the 70s, 60s, right? Like, we've had years of working up to this, where all of a sudden within the last few decades, men have never had that example of what it looks like as a father to do half of the parenting and half of the work. But yet women are expecting men to just figure it out. And I think that there needs to be something said about understanding that men have never had examples of this before. So it's going to be an adjustment process. And unfortunately, this is what that looks like. People aren't just going to snap to, So I am optimistic though. I do see that men and women are going to get on the same team, because honestly, at the end of the day, we're going to have to battle the, post capitalism, the planet dying, all of these things, because our literal lives depend on it. And that's kind of my why. I really want to get people to a place of love and connection again, because we are suffering this epidemic of loneliness, and it's very sad to see. And I've been meeting with more and more. I mean, even today I met with a 32, he was virgin. Like, I meet with more virgins than ever. And it's interesting that I think has been the other thing that's just been changing a lot. It's just, men are just afraid. Men are afraid to put themselves out there for the repercussions.
Definitely. I feel that now. When I spent a lot of time building up the podcast, working late, and suddenly I knew 5 years down the road, I was thinking, I don't have a social life. I've got no social group. I don't know how to go out and do this anymore. And it took me a while to get back into it. And you talked about how we need to remove the stereotypes of dating. Is that a big problem then, that we don't understand the biological underpinning of it? We still believe if we're good looking, if we have the powerful job, if we have the money, that's attractive, that it's a woman's role to be in the house. Do guys need to move on from this red pill Andrew Tate bullshit that's out there just now? That, we've got to be the dominant power one in the relationship, because there's so many variations of it.
Yeah, I mean, with red pill, I've just worked with so many clients that have left red pill because they can't. It sounds fine and good. You get that echo chamber, because I think a lot of these guys cling on to something like that because for the first time they're feeling heard. Their woes, their sadness, their loneliness is being validated by these echo chambers. The problem is that they're echo chambers, and to be able to grow mentally, you're gonna need to start to understand and see and inquire other lines of thinking, because that is going to be the thing. I mean, listen, we find, and John Vervaeke talks about this. He's a philosopher. He's one of my favorites. We define our sense of self through other people, right? So, when you're a child, the only people are your parents. So what you end up doing is you just copy the way that they think, you copy the way that they do, they say all the things, because it's the only thing you know. Over time, as you grow up, you start to have other experiences, other relationships, other interactions that make you question yourself. And now you have self-reflection. And now you can figure out who you are from that contrast. The opposite's true. People who have very few interactions lose themselves a sense of self, or never develop one to begin with, because they don't have the contrast. So what's happening now, especially with this work from home culture, also the other thing too that affects dating, I think, is there's nowhere to go unless you're willing to spend $100 to go out, right? Yeah. The only place, like they talk about the idea of the third, right? The third place you go. So it's, the house, the work, some people go to the gym, but where's the other place you're going? There's no hangout spots anymore, unless you're, going to the bar, which is alcohol culture, which is kind of on its way out. So people are very lost. That mixed in with this isolating lifestyle where people aren't talking to each other, and therefore getting social anxiety, because it's that way, by the way. It's not, I have social anxiety so I don't talk to people. It's I have social anxiety because I don't talk to people. What's happening is that people are losing their sense of self. They no longer have anyone to contrast it to. So it almost exacerbates this red pill, where it's an echo chamber of only one thought. And in that case, to me, that's not growth. You can feel better, but I know what ends up happening, because I see these guys years into it. They're like, it comes to a point where it's like, the other shoe's got to drop. I'm still not getting women. I'm still not happy. I still fucking hate women. And then really it's, I hate myself, because I'm not living up to this idea that society tells me I need to be a man. And this is where, some industry, or, in the coaching industry too, it can get kind of manipulative. Is, I can see a lot of these coaches, Andrew Tate, they play off of these men's insecurity.
Definitely.
They bring them down, saying, you're nothing yet, you're nothing yet, you're nothing yet. Come with me and I will make you everything. But it's another man with a higher status telling this guy, you are this, and this is why it's wrong with you. Come with me and I'm going to fix you. How convenient for a capitalistic society to sell you that. Right? So the way that I take it is that you have the answers inside of you. The way that I coach is very much a dialogue. My goal here is to figure out and to set a platform so that you can reveal the answers that you already have and start implementing them. And I think, so yeah, with Red Pill, it's a trip.
I mean, was that what you were talking about when I think you said in an interview about men going through a renaissance, like a kind of change? Because for years, because we don't have fathers who discuss these things, how to pick up women, how to pick up birds, whatever the cliche stereotype is, you go to like the men's health magazines, you go to the forums, you go to your mate down the pub who tells you these things, and we start believing it, but we don't have any kind of. That's why I'm so glad of coaches like yourself, because you're actually showing what works, what doesn't work. I mean, you even demonstrated how you catfished yourself, women, to show guys how this works, which is quite a remarkable thing to do. Do you think that's the hardest thing guys need to realize, is that looks, everything, this doesn't matter. You can build from where you are, but
you can build from where you are, but I'm not going to lie to you, looks does matter, but it's not in the way you're still, like, not you, but men who feel like that are looking at attraction through a man's lens, because that's how they view attraction with women. Do you look good or do you not look good? And it's as simple as that. With women, it's, does this man look healthy? Because a man that is healthy tells me that this man is disciplined, tells me that this man actually cares about the way that he looks, meaning that he probably has his shit together, meaning that he can probably take care of me when I'm 9 months pregnant with his child and I can't fucking do anything, right? Like, and that goes back to evolution. This goes back to circumstance. So it doesn't matter. It makes it a hell of a lot easier, because what women do and what people do, not just women, it's called thin splicing, where you, and Malcolm Gladwell talks about this, but where you take a very quick image of who someone is right when you see them, and you kind of make a mental narrative of who this person probably is.
Yeah.
So if we see a man that is, looks like he takes care of himself, looks like he's healthy, whatever, it tells us, okay, this man is capable. This man doesn't just go for temporary satisfaction, like, cookies, instead chooses, okay, a full, healthy meal, right? That line of thinking tells me that this man is a man that thinks with his future in mind, right? Again, so by looking at a healthy man versus a non-healthy man, yes, a lot of women are going to go the first option. But at the end of the day, looks doesn't matter as much. It's not looks doesn't matter. Looks doesn't matter as much to women as it does to men. It's funny. Men are very, this is a little breath of hypocrisy that I'm noticing as well, is men, they love to not all men in the red pill, they love to criticize women for only caring about being tall, whatever, looks. But it's funny, because men are actually number one in requesting a woman be fit, a woman look good, a woman, have boobs, butt, thin waist, all these, blonde, whatever, all of these physical traits. That, I think that's the point I'm trying to make, is that we are a lot more similar than we are different. While looks don't matter the most, they definitely are on that list, because it tells us a lot more about that man than, the slob sitting next to him.
So where then do we start? Because you were saying that there's three main points where There's your kind of approach, like day approach, night game, whatever you want to call it.
Cold
There's
approach.
your
Yep.
social life, and there's dating apps. What's the best way for a guy? Say you've got somebody single, virgin, just left, divorced, whatever it is. What's the best way for them to start meeting people? Or should they be working on themselves enough to build that authentic confidence to pull people into a self-amused, happy, exciting life? Which approach would you go for originally if you were coming back into it, or single, whatever it is?
So, I want to debunk this whole working on yourself thing. Like a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm gonna, go into my burrow and work on myself, and then I'm gonna emerge this beautiful butterfly ready to go." And like that's actually not how that works. Again, what John Vervaeke's saying is like you actually can't define your authentic sense of self without people. You can't do it alone. The only caveat to this, the little asterisk, if you will, is if you are just out of a breakup or you're still getting over somebody. Yes, in that case, absolutely go take all the little self-care days that you need. That's where you can kind of, bunker down and cry it out, feel out those feelings so that you can be ready, right? But for men that are ready, it goes back down to two things: skill set and mindset, right? So we can start with mindset. So mindset is physical, which is your physical health as well as your nutrition. Then it's your mental health. Then it's your social, and then it's your spiritual, right? Those are kind of the four sects that they almost call like sharpening the saw. That's actually something I got from the sales company I worked for. So physical health, this country in America, I should say, we do a very bad job at really honing in the point that your mental status, the way that you talk to yourself, the way that you think, that literal happiness gauge that you have, the size of it is dependent on the food that you're eating. Most people think physical health is just going to the gym and eating, a few salads or, eating about. But if you are very cognizant about what you are putting into your body, your physical thoughts will start to change. So that's the first thing I get to people. If you are not actively working on not just going to the gym, because guys that also, they'll do that too. Oh, I go to the gym every day. Well, what are you eating for dinner? Well, lasagna. Well, all these other terrible. Well, then what's the point of going to the gym? Right? You're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different result, right? So again, it has to be a combination of the two, because what ends up happening is now your thoughts start to change. Now you're going to start to see the world differently. Now the information that I'm going to be telling you and coaching you on, you're going to start to accept it a lot easier. It's easier for me to coach as well, because a man that is also working on the discipline of going to the gym and doing the hard things, the hard labor, is also going to be easier coached to do other hard things, right? So now you're getting into this habit where you are just yes, Jamie, I'm going to go to the gym. Yes, I'm going to do this. Yes, I'm going to try this, right? So this is physical. Mental, gratitude list. Let's start looking at things that we like and stop focusing on things that make us sad. So I listen to a ton of podcasts, and one podcast that I love is This American Life. Shout out. There's one episode that came on during the pandemic, and it was about, I think, this guy where he realized that he was just constantly and society will do this to you. They make you focus on things that aren't working for you. He's so tired of focusing on things that are wrong. What's wrong, right? Everything's wrong. Where he realized he's so depressed that instead every day one day he just was like, you know what? I'm going to carry around a little notebook in his pocket, and he's just going to write down all the things that give him little joys. I think that's what he called it, little joys, where, I reached in my pocket and I had change in it. Warm laundry coming out of the dryer. One of the things, and I think of that too, one thing on mine is at airports, when you see two people run up to each other, like they haven't seen each other in a while, getting off the plane, like that's one of my little joys. Like, and now he realized just by making a little challenge for himself that he's actively going to start looking for things that make him happy and give him little smiles. Guess what? He's not focusing on the things that make him sad. So then his actual thought process, the chemistry started changing. Where now and so that's why in my program I also include gratitude lists, because I'm literally trying to change the way that you think. And in the beginning, you just have to don't question, just do it. And then you'll start to understand why. The third one is social. Okay, what does your social life look like? If you do not have a social life, and a lot of men are guilty of this, they make one group of friends in high school and then they like stop after a while. You have to continue to cultivate friendships. And you know what's so crazy is so many men would be so surprised. Most guys are looking for more friends. Be friendlier. And this is the whole thing, flirt with the world. Because if you flirt with the world, this translates into that later game, but if you flirt with the world, women, when you start flirting with them, are not going to feel so singled out. Because I'm like, oh, he flirts with everybody. I hope he flirts with me more. Right? So again, by cultivating that social circle, now you start to have a lifestyle. Start looking for interests. I am constantly, as a 33-year-old woman that hates clubs, I'll go to a dive bar to play pool once in a while, but you're very rarely find me there. But I have a very active social life because I am constantly on the hunt for group activities that don't involve alcohol. So, one of the things that I love is music festivals. Music festivals, to me, they're more than just concerts. It's a whole world. You got your FestiFam, and it's so easy to make friends there. And so now it's like everywhere I go, I have lots of friends that I've made over the years because I've lived in lots of places, and it's amazing. And I learn from them, right? So again, going against the echo chamber, I learn from them, and to get really good with people, really good with women, to be interesting, you have to be interested in a lot of different things, right? So learning about other people also expand your knowledge. And now I don't run out of things to say. Another thing, this is actually more recent, and I hope my friends listen to this that are got me into this, but one-wheeling. So one-wheeling is one of those, I don't know if you guys have one wheels over there, but the big wheel it's almost like a skateboard, but it's electric.
Yeah. With a wee rotating wheel in the middle. Yeah.
Yes, in the middle. And I learned how to do it over New Year's, and I'm obsessed. And
awesome.
It's brought me so many friends because there's so many groups that do like group rides and things like that. So that's like my newest thing. So I love camping. Like a bunch of my friends out in LA, we used to go camping all the time before I moved. Like I'm always looking for group activities. So always be hunting for that. And the women will come because now you're talking about the thing that you're doing instead of talking about her because she's pretty. Now there's more of a justifier, a reason to talk to her, and it makes game become easier. But if you are just going off of, I don't have any friends, I just want to date, and then you complain about how there's nothing to talk about, well, step back and look at your life. Are you just committing all of your hours to your work? And if that's the case, how can you readjust? Because all the science has come out, and it's always saying, listen, money doesn't buy you happiness. It buys you options, but it doesn't buy you happiness. What buys you happiness? Relationships, memories, interpersonal communication. Even the conversation you're having with the clerk at the grocery store is studied to bring you more happiness than money, right? So if being happy is the goal, what are you doing to fulfill that goal? Or are you just dedicating, like if happiness is the goal, then why are you committing so much time to the thing that doesn't bring you happiness? And I get it. You need a paycheck. I understand that. But how can you look at your life and take a step back and say, hey, I'm going to start committing more of my time to being social with the same sense of urgency that I do when I have to wake up with my alarm and go to work every morning? That's the mind shift that I'm trying to get these guys on, because at the end of the day, loneliness will kill you. Loneliness will kill you. They've studied that chronic loneliness is comparable to smoking 16 cigarettes a day. So it's one of those things where I look at these guys' life that come to me, and they're just, all I do is work. I just pour myself into work because I don't have a social life. And it's like, you need a social life so that you can be happy to be a better worker. Right? It's that flip. It's that mind. You got to flip it on its head.
Because I used to always find that strange where when I was like really young, I was like no confidence at all. So I started speaking to everybody the same. Janitor, CEO, didn't matter. I'm going to ask about your day. I'm going to ask about this, whatever it was. And the stuff you get, and you build up relationships with cashiers, janitors, whatever. And, you say good morning, how you getting on? It can be silly things. And I never understand that in a date where somebody can say, "Oh, we didn't have much to talk about." You have her entire life to ask questions about.
Mhm.
You have yours to share. I never understood that. But for those people who are going, which like I obviously thought I was like had an amazing answer, but for people who are going, "Oh, I don't know if I could go out and put myself in these situations," do you have a way of getting over that initial, "Oh fuck, that's scary," going and meeting all these new people, being that person that has to put yourself out into the situations? Or do you only work with people who are ready to put themselves into those environments?
I mean, are you ever ready? You know what I mean? It's
Hmm.
just a matter of if you're going to do it. We have to start looking at social interaction like we do every other skill. And this is new. The reason why this is foreign to us, this idea is foreign to us, is because back in the day, we didn't have social media to fulfill that temporary hit of dopamine that gives us that social pleasure just for a second, doesn't last as long, that we did back in the day. Back in the day, you had to talk to people. So
Yeah.
people were naturally better at it. And you didn't have a choice.
Well, it's like your
Whereas
birthday.
now, what'd you say?
How, it's like your birthday. How many times do people send you a message on social media but don't pick up a phone to
Mhm.
phone you?
Right. So in that nowadays, you know, we have to just start doing. It's just like every other skill. Were you afraid to ride a bike when you were a kid? Sure, but you did it anyway, right? Any new skill that you're doing, you have to learn, and there has to be a room for failure. And so in that, it's yes, you're scared. So to those men, I say yes, accept that you're afraid. Yep. Now, what can you physically do to calm yourself? Okay, take a few belly breaths. If you breathe in for 3 seconds and breathe out for 4 or 5, you are naturally calming your state of being, right? Now, in the beginning, sure, I actually prefer, or I'm not prefer, but encourage some guys who really, don't very afraid, don't know what to do, don't know what to say. Yeah, sure, I can give you some canned lines. I can teach you some things to say in the beginning. Do I want you to stick to those? Absolutely not. But just enough to get your mind to recall that, hey, listen, the last time I talked to those few girls, it didn't actually go that bad. All right, maybe I'll try it again. That's where I want to get you. Okay, so now that I got you here, let's push the envelope a little bit further. But don't look at the mountain, just look at the first step. And the reality speaking, most women, and this is something I learned in sales too, there's something called a 10-80-10 rule, right? When you're knocking on doors, 10% of the people, they're going to be easy. They're going to be the ones that you just happen to knock on the door at the right time with the right attitude, and they're going to say
Mm.
yes. Boom, easy. The other 10% of the time, those are going to be the mean ones. Those are the ones that are going to call the cops on you, kick you off their doorstep, be really upset. So in the world of women, right, those are going to be your bitches, right? The ones that are very, very mean, very, trying to prove themselves, whatever. But 80%, and if you include the 90, or I mean, sorry, the 10%, which makes it the 90, the nice ones, they're going to be indifferent. They're good. Either way. So my goal is, how can you convert that 80% into the ones that are into you? I'm not worried about the 10% bitches. But it's funny, social media, and this is, I can always tell when someone's addicted to social media, because their mindset is every girl's like this. Every girl's a bitch. Every girl's waiting to call the cops. Every
Yeah.
girl, and I'm like, ooh, no, get off the screen, touch some grass, go outside, breathe some fresh air, because you've been inside for too much. Right. So again, you got to check yourself sometimes, the accountability. How many new people are you talking to? Is it just the people on the internet? Well, you might have those that worldview then.
It's always those people you hear have these like very general rules, or they generalize everything. You know, it's not just that one person was having a shitty day or that event caused that. It's every woman, it's every blonde, it's every tall girl, it's every short girl,
Mhm.
it's every cocky girl, only fan girl, whatever you want. And I always find that it's like how many people use that as a justification that rather than it's just a bad experience, reset, restart.
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
How would you, they say the best relationship is the one that you should have with yourself, the most important one. How do
Sure.
you start working with these guys to make them understand that they deserve relationships? They deserve to chat to girls, especially if they've never had sex, if they've never had any real success with people, they've never been social. How can they actually use better language internally to kind of accept
Yes.
and understand that?
Yeah. So everyone's different, right? So you have to kind of meet them where they're at. A lot of it, I like to find out where those thoughts started, right? Where the sticking points come from, so that I can teach them how to overcome them, and then we can. And the reason being is we can understand the triggers, right? So if we understand where it comes from, we can understand what triggers it, and then we can figure out ways to handle it later on. But I got to tell you, one aspect of what I do that I have seen better results than so many other ways that than other things put combined is I do these psilocybin mushroom ceremonies, and that I think is the most powerful and impactful. Is it the only way of doing it? Of course not, but it's just something that I've seen work so well that it's just worth mentioning. Um, what we do is, we go down to Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and it's a 3-day ceremony, sometimes longer, and we spend a day bringing up all the things that they want to work on, all the things that we want to focus on, and we go in and we take psilocybin mushroom. It's a tea. It's 5 grams, what they call a hero's dose, with 2 healers, 2 shamans. They studied under Johns Hopkins University, and we take them blindfolded. So you go inward. And the revelations that I've seen, and I do it with them myself, but the revelations that I've seen have been so profoundly impactful. And it solves exactly that. It defines your sense of self, and it makes you feel like you are worth and deserving of the things that you hope to get. So, and the reason of why that is, the way that mushrooms work, and actually a great podcast, again, Huberman Lab does a great episode on this, where psilocybin is so powerful and it's such a medicine because we have the way that we look at things, right? The way that we view the world, our lens, right? It's called our default mode network. It's how we interpret the world. What psilocybin mushrooms does is it temporarily shuts that off. Now you have no perception of the world like how you used to. And instead, it lights up other areas of the brain. So it's almost like, going on a detour because a road is closed. So now your usual path of transportation, the way that you think, you have to go around it. You have to figure out other ways of understanding whatever narrative you're focusing on, as well as the the serotonin that is involved with it, which makes you feel loved and secure while you're seeing things from a different perspective. So if seeing things and making yourself feel differently about yourself is the goal, it's one of the most impactful ways I've ever seen it done, because you literally come out of it with your brain having now formed a new neural pathway And understanding that this is a much easier path of least resistance way of thinking about this. I like this way better. And now you can carry that into even after your journey. And it's been studied where, I mean, even me, I've done this where I feel like a permanently changed person for the better, because my mind has just thought about something differently and found it more efficient and now prefers to think about it that way.
Because you see that with asqua mushrooms,
Oh,
people are saying
ayahuasca.
asqua, yeah, and they're saying about like how it helps depression, and somebody commented said it's almost like the older generations and all these older, ancient civilizations understood and found these things. We've created social media in this world as a way of fucking that all up. We've created this problem ourselves, and we need to get back to it. And I found that really interesting because I think I've listened to the Huberman episode on that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if we are starting to build this social life, getting out there and doing these things, how do we then escalate between making friends? How do we know when somebody wants to be approached? Pick up, talk about indicators of interest, all those sorts of things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do you know if somebody's into you? How do I know if a girl wants to be approached, if she's willing to be talked to? Then how do I know how to move it on? What are these kind of things I'm looking out for?
So this
Guys,
starts really, this question, I mean, it's a loaded question, right? But it's inside, it really starts inside out. So first of all, to all the guys out there that are listening that are like, oh, she's probably busy. She's probably in a rush. I don't want to bother her. Let me ask you this. If a 10 walked up to you and started talking to you, would you be annoyed? If a 10
No.
walked up to you and made you laugh and made you smile, would you be like, I have to go? No, you'd make time. Why? So the question isn't she probably won't be interested. It's why wouldn't she be interested? It's you. So if you view yourself as a bother, that's exactly what's going to happen. But if you view yourself as someone that can provide value, then now I'm interested. So how can you, then it becomes, how can you provide value? Okay. Making her laugh, not being dependent on an outcome, not be solely talking to her just so you can grab her and put her into bed, right? You are now just dropping little self-amusing, so, you're inviting her into your fun, and you are now reading her receptiveness levels and making an assessment, right? So it's what I call the attraction cycle: lead, read, create space. So lead, first step, leading the interaction. So leading with value, a guiding principle, making her laugh, inviting her into your fun. From there, you're not outright, she doesn't feel singled out. You're also in talking to all of her friends. So going back to what I was saying earlier, flirt with the world, right? You are now adding value to the spaces and lives around you. I mean, it's literally the background of my phone screen, that quote. And because I believe I want to add value to someone's life, I want to add value to the space that I am in by making people feel like they're having fun and are not being singled out, not being, oh, this guy's flirting with me, he's probably going to want this. No, he just made me laugh. Okay, now I'm interested. Okay, how I'm going to know how you're going to read her receptiveness levels? Okay, I have a thing called CHEAT. CHEAT. C is for conversation quality. Is she continuing the conversation? Does she seem like she's into it? Is she adding into the conversation? Right? What is the quality of it? H is for hair. Is she constantly kind of grooming or flipping her hair, making sure that she looks really good to show you the girlfriend face, right? Which is what women do. E is for eye contact. Does she look at you for just like a little too long? A is for attention. As soon as you start talking, is she immediately to look at you? When you guys laugh together, is she looking your way? Because studies have shown that if you guys laugh, you automatically look at the person that you feel closest to or the person you're more attracted to. And then T is for touch or tap. Is she touching you? Is she, like, oh my God, I have to tell you something, and touching you on your shoulder really quickly, or leading you to go show you something, or introducing you to her friends, and all of these things. Okay, now that's the first layer. All right, we're still feeling good. Okay, now I'm going to make her laugh a few more times. Now I'm just going to invite her and her friends into my fun. I'm going to introduce her to my friends. We're going to have a little group dynamic going on. I'm going to reveal information about myself. Ask her about her. but don't question stack. You can turn a lot of those questions into statements by making observations or cold reads, things like that. That's getting a little, anyway. And then after reading of the receptiveness levels, then you're going to create space. This is the most important part of it. Creating space means that you're not lingering. So you might draw your attention away. You might start, you might like flirt with her a little bit, but then pull back and go back to friend zoning her. Because, and this is where guys are like, well, that's so manipulative. Like, you're playing off of her insecurities because he's like, why isn't he hitting on me anymore? I want him to hit on me. Well, no, what you're doing is you're now creating that space to empower her to come back and show you her interest. And now you know that she is someone that's going to try for you, because that you deserve no less. And thus the cycle begins again. Then you lead, and then you read, and then you create space. You lead, read, and you do that all the way up till you're escalating into your flirtation vibe that you're trying to create, into like the more intimate connection vibe that you're trying to create, until the more erotic or sexual vibe you're trying to create. Right? So there's a process of it. But that's the other thing, going back to generalizations that men always have, is, they think it goes from here to here, right? And if you are listening, go from the bottom all the way to the top. I'm going to talking to her, and all of a sudden, now I'm going to kiss her, and she's going to say no. It's like, well, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
That's not an escalator. That's an elevator, right? It's an escalator for a reason. You are going slow, and you're making sure with each cycle that creating space, she's coming back to you. She's continuously showing that investment. And then you would be doing her a disservice by not escalating flirtation, by not sexually building sexual tension, by not touching her, by not kissing her, because she very clearly wants it at that point. And women want to feel desired. And when a man shies away because he thinks he's doing her a favor by being a white knight and not, imposing or whatever, a woman's going to feel turned off, because at the end of the day, women want to feel desired. Jordan Peterson talks about this. Look at all of the narratives that women love. They love, Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey. What do all those have in common? A man that is, known in his community, that is, respected in his community, he finds one girl that he is just so desiring of her that he shows her a side of himself that he doesn't show anyone else. She feels chosen. Women want that feeling, but they want that feeling from a guy that isn't giving everything to her because she's the only one showing him any remote interest. She wants that feeling from a guy that he has other options, but still chooses to be with that girl. Now she feels chosen because you're being chosen out of all the other options, not because you're a last resort. That's the difference.
I love that. I knew you were going to be good, but I didn't think it'd be this good. Dude. I was trying. It's hard not to kind of go down rabbit holes, because I can't believe it's been 50 minutes and I think we're just starting on half the topics. But how then do we take this to a date? How do we then say, how do we then, because you pride yourself on never having a bad date. How do we then take this, tell good stories, plan dates, prep ourselves, mentally prepare? Or is it just the fact that we're overcomplicating this? That you should be just having such a fun life?
There's definitely an element of overcomplication, that's for sure. But I'm going to try my best to simplify it. So I have a guiding principle that I use in my life that has really helped me. And it's, I treat every new person like an old friend that I haven't seen in a while. That's the kind of energy, that's the kind of vibe that I'm going after, right? So imagine yourself, you've run into someone that you used to be friends with and you haven't seen in a while. What would that energy look like? Warm energy, open energy, curious energy, but still like smiling and friendly, but yet not like you need this, but you're just like, oh my God, how crazy, right? That's a kind of vibe that you almost have to go with on a date. Right? We are just, I'm down to have fun. Again, you are including her into your fun. You are not trying to provide fun for her. You are trying to include her into your fun. How are you going to have fun? Because women, we mirror. We will mirror your energy all day. right? So if you go into it with, I'm going to have a lot of fun, you can come or not. If she's a woman of value, she's going to come too, right? The other thing is going like logistically. Dinner dates are out. Movie dates are out. Anything where there's stagnation are out. It's very coffee dates are out. It's very hard to build sexual tension when you're sitting in a table across from each other. There has to be some movement. Dancing, one of my favorite first date spots, to be honest with you, going to a dive bar, playing pool. I mean, I love pool. That's another hobby of mine. Not amazing at it, but either way, I'm a good sport. I can play. But going to a pool, playing pool at a dive bar, going, axe throwing, some sort of Top Golf, any sort of activity with movement. Because now you have more elements to riff off of in between getting to know each other. You also got the touch element, especially if you're dancing, right? Those are your better first date spots than anywhere else. And you're not going to spend all that much money, versus like a fancy dinner somewhere, right? Women deserve that. Women, I definitely agree. If you're asking her for the date, you should be paying. Because, and maybe I'm biased, but, if a guy asks me on a date and makes me pay, I'm probably not going to go on a second date. It's because it took me about, $200 or more to look this damn good. But when it comes to, a dinner date or more of those, that's like your third date. That's like when it's more intimate. You already know each other, right? And you're really, and that's when you can sit next to each other, right? My favorite is like sitting catty corner. That's the best, and so I think a lot of guys, they don't, because what they have in their head is what they've seen in movies, what they've seen in, TV shows where it's, date means dinner. And let's be more creative, shall we? And cultivate a better experience for both you and her.
And do you think that's why guys use a kind of watered down version of themselves? They think date means, like you're saying, coffee, dinner. It's the traditional boring.
I think that men watering themselves down. When I say that, what I mean to say is this. Men, actually, you know what? I'm gonna take it to the opposite side. The men that have worked with me that have had major breakthroughs, that have talked to me and they're like, Jamie, I get it now. I got, multiple dates. I have matches now. Now I can talk to girls and know where I'm at, know how I can escalate. I go every time, I'm like, what happened? What's working for you? What is the secret sauce? And every time, without fail, they tell me, I stopped doing and saying the things I thought she wanted me to say, and I started doing and saying the things that I wanted to do. Every single time. So the opposite of that is men who are watering themselves down, who are too afraid to put themselves out there because they might get rejected. And to which I say, if you want to, shout out to Andrew Tate, if you want to be a man, if you want to be masculine, what is more masculine than rising up to the occasion and facing adversity? Go out and fail faster. Do it faster. Hit the floor faster, because I'll tell you this, and a lot of guys go, I don't want to ruin it. This girl could be the one for me, No. First of all, if she is the one, it's not going to matter. Second of all, if she isn't the one, the one that is yours is going to come along, and you better be ready. So you better fail and get better at it and learn your mistakes. Come back to me. We could tweak it a little bit. So then you're better off for the next one. Because again, it's really just a game of repetition. We can talk theory all day, but if you are not out there practicing, what are we doing? Because the way that I define confidence is competency, community, and consistency. So competency, what's your skill set? Where are you at? Community is you need someone to talk to, right? Finding out who you are through other people. John Vervaeke. You need that community. You need that help. And if you're talking to the same people every single day, you have the same friends from high school and that's it, yeah, your stories aren't going to go anywhere. Yeah, you're not going to have a lot of things to riff off of because you've been hanging out with the same people doing the same things at the same places. Expand your community. And the third is consistency. How often are you committing to getting better at this skill? You
I
do
mean,
all those things, maybe you're confident. Confidence will come.
that really hit home because that's what I did. Like when I stopped trying to win them over and actually was just my weird self and chatted about shit that I found interesting, I started getting success, and I was like, "What the?" I would say bizarre things, and it would end up they would be like, "Yeah, I want to see you again." But when I actually got so absorbed trying to win them over because they were stunning and hot and big air quotes, I would always end up getting the thanks, but I'm just not feeling it at the end of it. And I'd be so besotted by them and go, where did it go wrong? And now I try not to give a fuck. But when I do, it goes wrong. But how then do we sell this in a dating app? How do we, because you can't always portray sarcasm, because you've got your techniques on like make or break for picking your photos, writing your bio prompts. How do we sell ourselves in, say, 500 characters, whatever it is on Hinge, Bumble, Tinder? Or
Mhm.
should we have bother with these apps nowadays?
I mean, you definitely have to bother with these apps because unless you have all the time in the world to go out all the time, I mean, online dating. There's pros and cons with each of the funnels: online dating, cold approach, and social circle. So with online dating, the pros are that it's convenient. You can do it on the fucking toilet if you wanted to, right?
Hmm.
But the con is that you have to manufacture that spark that you're not getting because you're not meeting her in real life, and that's where the hard part comes in. So yes, there are ways that you can showcase humor. And that's the other thing too. A lot of men, they're very logical. They take dating apps very seriously. So when they say like green flags I'm looking for, right? They can say, well, I'm looking for someone who is fit and someone who is smart and someone who is nurturing and whatever. Or you can make a joke and be like, well, green flags I look for, well, a girl that steals my hoodie yet again because let's be honest, you look better in it anyway, right? Something funny, making her laugh. That's the best part because then it's going to be using or appealing to her curiosity and making her curious about you, which is the first step of attraction. The other thing too, I mean, there are ways where you can cultivate that spark. But again, you have to get very good at knowing who you are and knowing so you can make those jokes. Because the other thing, this kind of goes back to what we talked about in the very beginning, where you're talking about teasing and negging girls. So here's the thing. While I don't like to teach negs, and I think negs, they do have a time and place, but it's very rare, and I actually don't normally even teach them. Teasing, however, definitely. And here's the thing. A lot of guys, I don't want to tease because, she's going to be turned off. She's going to be this. Think about it from her perspective. She probably has brothers. And even if she doesn't have brothers, she probably has guy friends. How do you, as a guy, treat your friends when you guys disagree about something? Is it like, oh, that's okay. Like, I also did, we don't have to agree on everything. Or, like, you just kind of change your answer to agree with him just because he's your friend. No, you riff on each other. You guys call each other stupid names. You guys make fun of each other all the time. It's out of love, right? You do this with your little sister too. So she sees that, and then all of a sudden she sees you treating her on a pedestal, not doing those things. She's gonna be like, being on a pedestal is lonely. It's lonely at the top. You look around, you're like, now I feel like ostracized. I want to see him treat me the way that he treats his friends, the people who are closest to him. And a good practice to do that is treat her like a little sister, where you're not going too far to make her go cry to mom, but you're doing it in a way that makes her laugh, that makes her want to spar back, because it also shows us this side of yourself that you don't really care. You're not dependent on the outcome because you're secure with yourself and you're going to treat her like you would treat every other friend that you haven't seen in a while.
I love that. I love that way of looking at it because it just removes such a level of bullshit and stress that we put on it. So how then? Because you're known as the red flag whisperer.
Mm-hmm.
How what are red flags then? How should we look for in her behavior or their behavior, depending on like what your sexual preference is, to decide, nah, it's not worth it? And how do we deal with rejection to come back stronger? You know, to learn from it and then grow from it.
So red flags and green flags, that's going to look different to everybody, because sometimes a man's red flag for a girl is that she is too clingy, but for another guy who is very avoidant, that clinginess could actually just mean that she's secure, and he's just so avoidant that anything looks clingy. You know what I mean? So it's very different. It's very nuanced to the person. But I think, general red flags, if you will, is a woman that's not contributing investment. So investment is nothing more than just the time, energy, and sometimes financial commitments that she's actually giving back to you, right? If you find yourself always being the one to reach out first, to set the date, to coordinate, to do the time and time and time and time and time again, okay, she's not interested. She's just trying to probably get free food from you. Move on. When it comes to red flags, but again, it's kind of on a case by case basis. As far as although I will say this, the problem that I most see is, where men can be very easily manipulated with looks. A woman can be a complete narcissist, but because she's very pretty and the status and the clout that he gets by having her, it justifies the reason to stay with her, when in reality, you're actually training her, because you're bending over backwards for this girl. You're actually training her to treat you that way, because you're giving her positive reinforcement with your attention to act this way, because she knows that she can get away with it. So then it becomes a matter of, setting and maintaining boundaries. What was the last question, though, that you had said?
It was just about sort of rejections, like how, because obviously as we're going out there, how do we grow from this? Because a lot of guys will crumble the first rejection.
The way to get over rejection is to go through it. There is no magical, it's going to suck. Yep. When you fall down on your bike for the first time, is it going to hurt? Yep. You can't put padding on your feelings. I mean, the padding that you can put on is and this is something that, I've started recently teaching, is figuring out where that validation you're looking for comes from. So a lot of men especially who don't have a lot of women, also tend to not have a big social life. And so the only focus of where they're getting that clout and validation from their other male peers is how they're getting, at what rate and what efficiency are they getting attractive women. And this goes back to grade school days. Who was the coolest guys in school? It was the guys that got the girls. You guys never grew out of that. You guys kept that mentality all the way throughout adulthood, especially, growing up in college and all the things that we see, the sex selling, with everything. So that is an old childhood pattern that is just A, accepted in society when it shouldn't be. And B, something no one has ever sat you down. And why are you still clinging on to an idea that you held as a child? That your value comes from women. What is an adult version of that? Let's move out of that. There's an adolescent version, right? So let's highlight that for a second so then we can get over it, right? So then it becomes, okay, instead of trying to change where your validation comes from externally, right? Where it comes from women, let's say, when you don't have anything else, it's easier said than done to just, okay, we'll make it internal. It's internal validation. Well, that's really hard too. You can't just fucking flip it. It's not a switch. So what do? You have to flood your validation. Find other ways of getting validated. That's not women. That's not other male POs about women. How else can you be getting validated? And this goes back to lifestyle. Figure out other ways to receive validation that isn't women specific. And once you have enough of them, you'll realize that validation isn't external anymore. It's internal. Because you have so many avenues to call back to where you feel validated. And now you're just a validated person. So don't flip it, flood it.
That would have probably have helped so many guys. I just think I wish I'd had that 10 years ago when I had one-itis about my first love. It was the end of the world when we broke up. Now when I look back, I'm like, fuck, man, you wasted years of your life for this. Now, one of the things I used to always say was, how do we make this a system? Because I love making these kind of procedures and we just do it automatically. Is there such a thing as making dating, or is this just building such an enjoyable life? You attract other people into it as friends and potentially as dates, that this is just a lifestyle rather than something you go out to do?
It's both, right? It's always both. Because there are systems that you can put in place. You can learn, right? And a lot of people are like, well, I don't want, now I'm being fake. Now I'm doing this. Well, not really. When you go to a job interview, do you just wing it? Or do you come in with actual, evidence and questions that you want to ask, and you look a certain way and to get what you want? Is that manipulation, or is that just being smart? Right? So again, dating is the same thing. You are the person being interviewed. How can you put your best foot forward, right? So there are strategies and methods to put into place. And that's kind of where my program, Relationship Renaissance 90, comes into play, where we take a logical approach to an emotional problem, right? I mean, you've heard me throughout this entire podcast. I don't give vague, generic advice. It's all very practical. It's all very step by step. I make sure to explain things in a way where it makes sense, where then when I tell you I explain the why, so that when I explain the how and the what, it just clicks, because now you understand the why behind it, right? So in that, yes, you can. And it also, but in that methodology creates a lifestyle. That's what you get. That's the prize, is you get a better lifestyle through the methodology that I teach and coaches teach, not just me. Right? So in that, it's both. Getting the lifestyle, though, is just the result.
Because that's something I used to do in my show, was to analyze great examples from media and pick people who were great examples of masculine men, or great for successful men, or whatever the guest was famous for. People we could imitate and copy their skills until we could build that part of our life. But you mentioned on your show recently about how James Bond wasn't a great example, but we see men look at him as a good example of an attractive, great man to copy for picking up women because it's in the media. Who is actually good examples of men for us to imitate or to follow or copy?
Oh God, I mean, there. I don't know what a great example would be. I think that the reason why James Bond wouldn't necessarily love to cultivate a relationship with someone like him is because he's very mysterious, and women don't feel comfortable with mystery in that realm. Now, they do like mystery where a man doesn't word vomit everything about him right off the bat. But women, by and large, especially today, they like a man that is comfortable and authentic, and wanting to be talking to people and laughing, and not making the attractive woman feel so singled out, like how James Bond does, right? James Bond doesn't really include everybody when he's talking to them. He's just really looking at the sexy woman, and I don't think that would make a lot of women feel safe necessarily. I mean, yeah, sure, he might get laid a few times just because he's cute, but I think he would actually probably he would be like my other. It's funny, my clients usually come in one of two packages. The first package being, men that they struggle with finding any woman. And my second package is they have lots of women, but they can't actually get any of the women to commit to them. So it's always interesting. I feel like James Bond would actually probably fall into the second category if I had to line him up with any of my like-minded clients. But as far as, you know what? this is going to be wildly controversial, depending on who your listening base is. But the man that actually just came to my mind is Obama. So our ex-president. And yeah, was he a perfect president? Probably not, is any president perfect? No. But the way that he carries himself is a really great example of what I call like healthy masculine, where he's just a man that is driven. He's ambitious. He can laugh at himself. If you've ever seen him in just like personal interviews, uh, he comes across as a man that is, a trustworthy guy that is not dependent on an outcome with you. Like, is still going to do what he's going to do. And I think that it's funny. I've never actually thought about this question until now. That would be a good one. And I'm sure as soon as this podcast ending, I'm going to think of a million other ones. But either way, that's one that came to me.
Because for me, I used to always think Henry Cavill. I always liked his kind of style of just enjoying life to trap people. Jason
Mhm.
Statham. I don't know. Do you know Tom Hardy? Who?
Yeah, Tom Hardy would be a good one. Actually, Cosmo, who is another dating coach of mine, and actually the coach who made me into a dating coach, um, winner of VH1's Pickup Artist. Tom Hardy is like like one of his favorite actors, and he often um, refers back to him. So it's interesting that you said that.
And what? The sort of the final thing I would probably want to know is, how are you going to keep scaling this? Because you're helping so many people, you're changing so many lives. Is there plans for like TED Talks, for further books? What's the evolution of your brand going to be?
My dream since I was about 16 years old was to be on TED Talk. So I really hope that comes true. And maybe together right now we're manifesting. And then I do have plans in the distant future to write another book. And that's going to be more on just attraction in general, not just online dating. And also to do more of these I think the other thing is, when I'm have a few more wrinkles on my face and no one wants to listen to traction from a old lady, I'm probably going to merge more of my coaching from the psilocybin psychedelic therapies, just because I've seen such tremendous results through that, and that is also just very inspiring and a part of who I am.
I think that'd be an awesome thing to see. Um, it literally feels like 10 minutes. And I know we've been going over for an hour. We've got to do another one because I think we're just touching Sarah. And I knew you were going to be good. I just didn't think you'd be this good. But what would you
Thank you.
want? What would you want people to take from this? Because I mean, there's so many things I want to ask on, but I know that these could be podcasts on their own. What would you want people to remember from this? Like a kind of a take home message, some homework, or just something, a key point or a key set of points you want them to remember?
I think the thing that I want men that are listening and struggling with these types of things is to hear is this. First of all, you are not alone and it's not your fault. I just got chills when I said that. We live in a society where it is growing harder and harder to do this. Something that our previous generations made it seem like it was so easy that it even adds, and especially with social media, it adds to this whole I don't have it, and so I am way worse. So at the end of the day, you're not alone. The reason why people like me, dating coaches like me, has become a bigger and bigger thing is because just like everything else, people need help with this, right? In America, where we started eating, fast food and cheap cereals and things like that, where it's we're all getting obese, if you will. There is a rise in personal trainers. There is a rise in gyms. It's the same thing that's happening. It's just something with being social because we're all isolated in work, because we're sitting behind a screen all the time. There's going to be a rise in coaching, right? So in this, there is a solution. So I guess what I want men who are struggling with to think about is this. If your life looked exactly the same a year from now, would you be okay with that? Do you want to change? And if you don't want to change, that's okay. But don't kid yourself. You are not going to outrun the male human feeling and desire for sex, love, and attraction and connection. That will never go away. No matter how much porn you watch, no matter how much, forums that you write on, you will always have that. And it will get worse if it doesn't get fulfilled. So in that, if you are ready to make a change, if you even are listening up until this point, right? Think about it. How long are you going to allow yourself to be this way? And until you are ready to take that next leap, it's going to continue to get worse. So what I want people to take is just really sitting with themselves and thinking, do I accept where I'm at right now? And are you open to hearing that there's a better option? And that's where I come in.
And what would that, if you had guys listening just now who are going, I need to work with this, with Jamie, I have to get her to help me. What services? How can we work with you? How can we see the amazing testimonials you have, your website, your social media? How can we get into your programs and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so you guys can follow me on all the social media platforms. I'm pretty big on Instagram and TikTok, specifically. But you can also find me on Facebook, YouTube Shorts. But it's Jamie Date. So JAM as in Mary, IE, and then date, like we're dating. So that's me. You can follow me. From there, you can book a call. You can get my free ebook, The Ins and Outs of Swiping Left and Right. And also I have a book. It's on Amazon. It's How to Make Online Dating Suck Less, Lessons from a Professional Catfish. And but either way, you can find me there. I also have a coaching program. It's 90 days with me, where you'll get to learn all of the things that you need to unlearn bad habits, learn the habits that do work, and then fine tune them.
Well, that's it for another week, and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.